Hello, Louisville. Guess who's coming to dinner?
So I said, well, let's do some monitoring. So I asked University of Louisville toxicologists, epidemiologists, researchers. I usually was always the only woman and the only black in the room. And I said, well, why didn't somebody come up with this? What they said was, we have projects that we work with the industry. We don't
They
want
have what?
projects that they do
Uh
with
huh.
the
With the industries. Okay.
research. And we really don't want to mess up that relationship. So I said, okay, that's good. Now let me go back and ask again. How come we haven't done some monitoring to verify what the companies are doing?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, now I heard the answer. And if you give me the answer, I'm going to go right back and ask that same question because we're missing a very important point here. I know what you're doing and why you're doing it. But see, the people in the community are saying this. So we need to get, and what you're saying does not connect at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I said, what's the real deal? So one of the researchers said, Arnita, we don't have the money. You know how much money that costs to do the monitoring? I said, okay, is that what you need? So I went to Senator Neal and I said, Senator Neal, I need $350,000 so we can start a monitoring program. And so he looks at me, he says, well, write the proposal up and let me see and explain, what you need. And let's see what we can do. So I did, wrote it, but we got the money. So once we got the money, then we set up. We just had to do the project.
Right.
So money included basically buying the equipment, buying the chemists, setting up the lab, and getting it ready to go. To do that, I made sure that I had all the regulatory agencies at the table. So there would be no mess up once we did this. So there was EPA, the local air pollution control district, the Kentucky Division for Air Quality, and actually that's the one where the money came from, was the Kentucky Division for Air Quality.
Okay.
And so
Well,
this was
that's kind of where it should have come from, huh?
right, right. So there was an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that was
Okay.
written. And the partners were the West Jefferson County Community Task Force, University of Louisville, and of course the Division for Air Quality.
Okay.
And so, of course, our role was the community role and making sure that the community was involved. And then, of course, the regulatory agencies were the regulatory agencies. They did what they were supposed to do. We hired a firm from out of town because we didn't want anybody to be connected,
Right.
locally. So we hired a firm. The firm did a year's worth of and
A
under
year's worth of what?
monitoring.
Monitoring. Okay.
And under EPA guidelines, that's all you needed to lay the foundation. So we laid the foundation for a year, and what we found 10 chemicals that were above standard. We found five that were quite a bit above, and one kind of way out of the wazoo. So once we found that, I did another dinner, but it was for 203 people this time.
Uh-oh.
And so, yeah, of course, there was, it was in the paper and it was a free dinner. So we had a few people there just for dinner. We realized that.
Right.
But the one thing that in the RFP, the request for proposal, when we wrote that up, one of the things was they had to explain it to me prior to the community. I wanted to make sure they didn't have a bunch of technical things that the community did not understand and would not feel comfortable. But they were warning. So the ink was still wet at 6 o'clock that night. One thing, Janice, that happens many times when you're dealing with the community is when you're dealing with fear or anger or upset or unknowing or wrong facts,
Right.
then you have a tendency to put things in your mind. And when we presented this, we actually laid it out. We showed that the community was absolutely correct. They were right.
Right.
When they're talking about smelling things and eyes burning and, you know,
Right.
chest, we proved them. And thought I was very happy. But there was a small group that decided that they were going to I think they said we denounced the report.
Denounce the report?
Yes, there was a group of community members that said we denounced the report.
Hmm.
Well, I kind of understood what was going on, but you had people from University of Louisville and um, the researchers. I mean, they were in shock because they really thought, this is, well, we've done something for these black people, okay, and they were. So
And
I
they're
just
still not happy.
and that's probably what they were saying. But so I asked, I said, is there anyone in here that does not want to improve our air? I mean, just raise your hand.
Simple
Because
question.
of you raise your hand, it's over. It's a done deal. Why would we continue to do anything else if
Right.
you don't want us to do anything? We started from then on, and we had to write what we called a risk management plan.
So what year was that it really kind of took off?
I'm sorry, the grant went from 1999. We
The reason
started.
I asked that question because I wasn't living here.
Right.
And just actually when I came back, when I moved back home, then I found out about the air.
Underlying conditions, just about all of us have underlying conditions because we have allergies that just goes along with being in the valley and not having the dryness that we should have. And
Well, I came home. I didn't have allergies until I came home
that's what I'm saying.
because I was in the drier climate.
Right.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Well, it was a shock to me because I'd hate to say, had I known, then I may have stayed someplace else. But see, I came back because of my mother, so
Yeah. Yeah.
it probably didn't matter what was going on. I just had to deal with it, and I'm
Oh yeah.
glad I did. I'm
Oh yeah.
absolutely glad I
We
did.
are we are when I went to Kentucky State,
Hmm.
actually going up on the hill, it didn't my
Was a
allergies
help.
didn't bother me that much at all
Oh, okay,
till I
okay.
would come back to Jefferson County. And then
Arnita, did the community, like when we were going to school,
mhm.
was it obvious that we had an air problem, or was it
during
discussed?
during that time, we have to remember that EPA did not come on the scene until the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we really didn't
Wow.
have a legal we had what we call it was like a smoke test, and they built like buckets and they put them up on posts, and it would actually collect the
Right.
ash and stuff from all the smoke. It was really bad.
Hmm.
And again, we have to remember that years ago we had sewage that ran straight down the middle of the street. And so a lot of people don't know that we were already messed up, you know. The chemical companies basically monitored themselves because of OSHA, and because they wanted to make sure that their people were as safe as possible. So what rules they developed was for the safety of their workers, not for the safety of the community necessarily.
So I didn't hear you mention OSHA when you named those organizations. Was OSHA at the table as well?
Oh, well, no, 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 because OSHA was for the workers, for the workers.
Okay. Okay.
That's occupational safety and health. So that was their charge, was for the health of the
Okay.
people. So
So the
basically,
people working at the plants.
well, yes, people
Okay.
working at the plant. Okay. So once they finished the monitoring, we already had our risk management plan in place. I thought EPA was crazy when they told us we had to do that before we knew what the results was.
Right.
And the risk management plan was what we were going to do in the event we found this, and this. That
Right.
was a little hard to do when you didn't know what they were going to find.
You had to be proactive without knowing what you're being
Right,
proactive about.
right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
And once the monitoring had been done, now it was time to put it into place.
Okay.
And the weird thing is that it was like a pyramid. It started like education, outreach, awareness, when you find something. And at the bottom, it was legal action. Well, once we found that they had violated the standards, there was no place to go but straight to the top, straight to the bottom, and that was legal action.
Legal. Right. Okay. Right.
So that's when the companies began to get quite upset because now this was, let me give you the time frame on that. That was like from 2000 to 2003. 2005 is when the regulation program came in. So
Okay.
we were doing all this prior to the 2003, 2004, putting the plans together, getting the regulations, because it took us another year to sit down and we actually rewrote the regulations for air pollution control district. Now, let me tell you that we here in Jefferson County, we have our own air pollution control district. They are responsible for our air here. But the rest of the cities in the state, they fall up under the state division for air quality.
Okay.
Okay. So once we got that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And so once we got this stuff together, um, we presented it to Mayor Abrams. So what are we going to do? What are we supposed to do? And so I said I was sitting with the director of Air Pollution Control District, and I said, well, let's just change the regs. That's regulations. I said that's what we could do. So he looked at art and he said, well, let's do it. So as we walking down the hall, he said, do you know what you just said? And I said, yeah, it's like changing laws, like the speed limit. And, I was getting excited. I said, like changing the speed limit. I said, I know, I know.
Yeah.
So we sat and meticulously walked through that for another year, word for word, and we were changing the regulations. We had industry at the table. We had some. One of the biggest arguments we had was over and/r, that you're giving the choice to the
To
industry.
either or.
Yeah. I said,
Yeah.
and I don't think we need to do that with the and the R. But they finally decided to leave it that way because I think they saw that at that point that maybe that was one thing that I would not go along with it. Now, they could have decided to do it, but I told them, I said, I will actually write an addendum to this.
Wait a minute. Let me say this to you. You know what my thought right here is I'm talking to Louisville's Black Aaron Brockovich. You hear me?
Oh my.
Arnita, that's what you were doing. Wow. That's deep.
Well, when we started the fight, because there was a fight, we had to get it approved by the Board of Air Pollution Control District.
Okay.
But the one thing that I have to constantly bring to the forefront, Mayor Abramson, this is one time he didn't fight. We had his full support.
Wonderful.
He never
Wonderful.
he never wavered from that. Even when the company said, well, we're going to move, Ford said they were going to close down. He
Mhm.
never wavered. He would say, well, I hope you don't, but we've got to clean up our air. I got to think about the people here.
Right.
The Air Pollution Control District, they held about 3 public meetings where people would come and where the people could sit and hear the board argue the
Mhm.
points. And then finally, it came to the day of them voting on it. And for some reason, it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. So I thought the mayor wants it. All of these people are appointed by the mayor. He's already told them he wanted it. It's going to happen. And they voted unanimously to accept the new regulations. Now, you,
Wow.
you think that was the end? Oh no. The company went to the state and they wanted the state to take over air pollution control district. They wanted them to eliminate them because if they did, see, the rules are you cannot be less restrictive than the state. You can be more restrictive than the state. You can be more restrictive than EPA, but you can't be less. So if they got rid of air pollution control district, then those restrictive rules would have gone out the door. It would have gone back up under the state who didn't have those strict rules.
Okay.
Okay. So they went to the state and they, and they put Ford was the big dog. So they put Ford out front in the General Assembly. He stood up and said, uh, we are going to leave this in the hands of the local air pollution control district because that means we have to absorb their budget and we have to absorb what they do. And it is much better for us to leave it there because Jefferson County puts out about 15% of all of the state's emissions
Emissions, yeah.
from Jefferson County. And so we're just going to kind of leave it there. So that was our victory. So then